Hello, everyone. Welcome to Struggle Session. I am your host, Leslie Lee III. As always, I am joined by my co-host, the host of Jack AM, Jack Allison, as well as special guest Felix Biederman of Chapo Trap House and Rose Gunn of RIP Cinema. We got a big show for you today. We're talking about Dark Souls. Yes, the From Software series, along with Sekiro and Bloodborne and Demon Souls, of course. We're covering it all. I got a wonderful panel of guests today. Folks, why do you all like playing a game that hates you? This is usually the question people have when talking about Souls games.
Yeah, because I deserve it, maybe.
I took a weird route through all these. I'd never played any of them. And then I started with Sekiro and then worked my way backwards. I went Sekiro, Bloodborne, DS3, DS1, DS2, then Demon Souls. And I never got the sense, like, DS2 is the only one where it's like, okay, DS2 is just because of whatever happened in the development process. That's the only one where I feel like there are parts of it that are like, fuck you, the player. But everything else, like, I feel like the problem people run into with these games is they feel like if you die, it means you suck.
Yes.
But it's really just you dying is the counter of how many tries it takes for you to solve the puzzle of whatever the enemy or the level or the world is.
I had that experience recently trying to get someone to play the first Dark Souls, like, for the first time. I think a big hurdle is just people are very used to, if you die a bunch in a video game, that means that you're doing, like, a bad job. And I think some people, it almost becomes like a personal failing to not be good at the game when, like, so much of the fun is failing a bunch of times and then figuring out how to get over it. And when you replay the games, it's like they have a whole different flow to them because you can kind of get through all these places now that you understand how all these different systems work and, like, how you fit into them.
Yeah, that's the thing that's different about Souls and what makes it so satisfying for me is, like, when you're playing, you're learning how to play a game. Now, that's not a useful skill. I don't think I need to personally know how to, like, bring back the fallen lords of a sunken kingdom. I don't know. I don't know how bad it's going to get in America, maybe, but it still feels so much more satisfying than a lot of other games where it just feels like you're just kind of pressing the buttons when they tell you to and just getting through it. There's no challenge to it, and the challenge is really more like an old school video game challenge, like an NES arcade era video game where you died a bunch of times and that was part of the gameplay, and that's that mindset that the Souls game brought about. That's why they became such a phenomenon, because it really got back to the kind of purity of a little bit of arcade gameplay with some stuff that kind of helps you along.
I'm sort of, currently, like, in my Souls journey. I played a lot of Sekiro. I didn't even finish, beat Sekiro, but I played a lot of it and really enjoyed it. And I want to do all these games, so I got the PS5 Demon Souls, and it's an absolutely brutal game. I've put a lot of hours into it, and I'm not that far into it. I will say, to be honest with you, I am feeling, exactly what you all are talking about, though, which is that, like, just even in sort of being able to get a little further in a level, you know what I mean? Like, I'm now, like, very stuck on, a boss, and I'm watching guides and everything like that. Whenever you beat a boss is such, like, a high euphoric feeling, versus, another game I have on PS5 is the Miles Morales Spider-Man game. And that really feels like I'm just, like, watching a Spider-Man cartoon where I have to, like, do quick time actions every once in a while. You know what I mean? It's like you're watching a cartoon and it says press the R button or something like that. There's something very satisfying about a game that's, like, so it's on rails, but it's still very, like, it's up to you to sort of get through all this shit and figure out like what the best method is for it. And yeah, I think that the PS5 like remaster is just really gorgeous, and Yeah, it's I don't know, it's a very satisfying game. Like I was saying, when you can't accomplish something, it's kind of like, not it's like winning at a multiplayer game, to be honest with you. They pulled off like the good feelings of winning that you get from multiplayer, but in single player.
Yeah, Jack, I'm glad you brought up Demon Souls because that's where I started. And I actually looked back in my email because my Demon Souls journey started with me almost getting scammed trying to fucking buy it in
Wow.
like 2009. I was trying to get the collector's edition and I bought it like these places don't exist anymore, but like the mid-tier like importing video
Sure.
game shops, they don't exist anymore because everybody buys shit off of Amazon. And I ordered for one of these guys and like half the like their thing was like it was 90-10. 90% of the time they sent you the game for cheap. 10% of the time they just kept your fucking money. And these motherfuckers held on to me for 44 days of my money because on day 45 you can't dispute it with PayPal. But finally I was able to get my goddamn money back and got Demon Souls and immediately was like, what the fuck is this? This game is so fucking hard. In fact, I actually only did maybe the first level, Jack, where you actually have gotten farther than me because I started, then I just like took a break from it and then Dark Souls came out and I got on that. And Dark Souls starts you off, I think, a lot easier than Demon's Souls, even though Demon's Souls ultimately is my favorite of the games because it's the one that's really is pure dark fantasy. It's the one with the most berserk influence.
Yeah.
It's the one that's the most fucked up, but it is the one that's the most difficult and hardest to like even understand because like when you die in that game, like the game gets harder and changes and like the NPCs change and it's a very complicated system. But hey, it started, there's so many of the things that game did have been copied by every game from racing games to Mario now, and it really is just a legendary game. I advise everybody play the remaster. I think you can emulate the PS3 version.
You can. I was doing that before I got the PS5, and it emulates very well, actually.
Well, I feel like these games came. This is more true of Dark Souls, the original one, than it is of Demon Souls. They came at a really pivotal time when I feel like third-person adventure games, they didn't go like fully David Cage mode, but I felt like they broadly became easier and held your hand more than previous games did. You weren't expected to figure things out as much because I don't know what happened. I think that our games art debate was the worst thing that could have happened because it caused a lot of games writers to go, oh, I'll show you what fucking art is. This is I'll make a plot that's like Indiana Jones fan fiction, and the thing you play through is it's
art because movies are art, and this like looks like movies, right? So it looks
exactly.
It feels and looks the most like movies. So now it counts as art.
It's the most reductive way to think about it. It is art because it's similar to other art. It's not like, oh, I'm going to show you it's art by pushing the boundaries, by using every part of puzzle solving and into it. Like, I feel like the success of a game like that, of a single player like third person game like that, how its success is measured by how many people stick with it and take hints from the world that they've been given. Down to like item descriptions and remembering things that fucking NPCs said and use that to solve the puzzle of the game. That shows that you've made a completely engrossing world. And if it's that difficult without you doing it, it forces you to do that. That is the highest thing you can achieve. But I feel like people gave up on that.
I agree. I feel like this did come in kind of the 2010s in the sort of Uncharted era of they
fact,
just like
I was just about to say like 2011 Uncharted 3 comes out, so Uncharted 2 is already out. Everybody went wild for it. Saints Row the Third, LA Noire, Deus Ex Human Revolution, another game that kind of like was kind of softening.
Now,
really
don't throw
hard.
Saints Row the Third in there. Saints Row the Third is absolutely solid and is not one of these games. You become a god in Saints Row the Third in the Matrix. But yeah, I mean, I do think that, there was this sort of there was this era of, especially like PlayStation wanting to be like, look, like this looks like movies. It's like a movie, but you can move the guy around. And I'm like, well, this actually is like worse than a movie. It's worse than Raiders of the Lost Ark. And yeah, I think that, if games are an art, there's an element to that of like, how does this make your brain work? And so much of that is puzzle solving, and it is like kind of an involvement by the user that's not just like, what if I could make, Indiana Jones crouch, during cutscenes or something like that.
I think it's really impressive and just like fascinating to me how Dark Souls does treat video games as its own specific art form with like its own specific end goals and way of communicating. Because something that like blows my mind is just thinking about how do you tell a story like the one in Dark Souls 1, 3, and kind of 2. We'll get into that a bit later. But how do you tell these stories that are so fragmented and yet people grow such an attachment to? It's not like you could depict Dark Souls as a show, because the way you absorb information in Dark Souls comes from like your interaction with the world, and even the difficulty is there because it's trying to force you to like look at this world really, really deeply. Like this is a hostile world, but you're being invited to like look deeply at it and figure it out. And yeah, I just have no idea how you would write a world like like Dark Souls.
Yeah. So much of it is like, like you sort of discovering it yourself. You know what I mean? There is almost like, that's almost like a side sort of element of these is like, where the fuck am I? Like, I have to get past this thing. Maybe I'll find out where the fuck I am even.
and there is a reason for this. So Miyazaki, the director of it, grew up poor, and he couldn't afford to buy manga, so he would have to kind of dig it out of like recycling, and that way you don't get every volume. He would just get bits.
That
and
really
pieces
is like
of the
getting
story.
codec pieces in games.
Exactly.
Like, who thought that there really would be little like notes in trash cans like there is in BioShock?
Yeah, and he wanted people, and he had to fill in the blanks himself, and he wanted the fans to fill in the blanks of the stories themselves. So with all the Souls games, maybe a little bit less with Bloodborne. Bloodborne is a little bit more explicit, and Sekiro as well. But for the mainline games, like you really don't like. There's a Viat Vijay. I'll link him in the comments, and he does these absolutely long, beautiful, complex lore videos, but they're like based on the item descriptions, and you just don't know so much of it. Maybe someone knows. Maybe there is like a Bible from headquarters that actually has all this shit written down, but it really gets by on just giving you bits and pieces, because it's a post-apocalyptic game, almost like a Fallout or New Vegas, and you're just digging through the archives.
Yeah, I think that is what. I mean, Miyazaki's background is incredibly important to all of this, and it is such a tragedy that he will be one of the last of his kind, one of the last game developers or makers of any type of mass media who came from a poor background, because that is just not the case anymore. That was never really widespread, but it is so not the case now. But I think he shows this incredible degree of restraint, because my feeling that I got was that there is a lore Bible. There's a very deep, complex lore Bible when you look at like the very subtle links between 1 and 2, and then 1 and 3 especially. The continuation of everything. I feel like even when games, there's a 1,000-year gap between games, him and everyone else who works in these, they filled in what happened in that time, how we got from Lord Ron to Irithyll, to the Boreal Valley. But I now with people who make things that are very lore heavy and have very a lot of moving parts in their plots, their immediate impulse is to just eventually just tell you everything, because they're like, well, what the fuck? I wrote all this. Everyone has to see it. Everyone has to see how brilliant I am. But Miyazaki and everyone else who's made these games, they're so committed to the idea of you feeling like you are in the end of the world. They're like, no, we know all this shit, But like, look, if you're really like that much into it, you can find like maybe 20% of what we know. But I like, we don't care if we did this. Like, that is just to make the direction of this game better. Mm-hmm. Not for you to, slap us on the back and go, oh, good job writing 1,000 fucking years of lore, like they do with, like everything has these post-credit sequences now where you're supposed to fucking blow the writer for answering a question that should have been asked rhetorically.
Right. Yeah, and I don't want to get too trapped in the lore thing, because they also do this with the gameplay and the game itself. There are whole sections, levels, bosses, enemies in every single one of these games that most players will skip over even if they finish them. There's so many hidden little things and different ways to go about things, which is something that none of these other games do either. They want you to see all the lovingly crafted worlds, but in Dark Souls, it's much more like an older game with secret levels, secret bosses, shortcuts, things that you can skip, things that you can mess up too. If you piss off an NPC in this game, that might be it. You might not be able to bring them back to life. It happens a lot with people. I know when they sit down on your PS3 controller, those fucking triggers hit R2, and if your sword is strong enough, you sit down on your controller and then you fucking kill the guy that you need to level up your fucking whatever, and and you're just you're done. You have to start over.
It's one of the only games that I can think of right now, or honestly, one of the only pieces of really popular media where there is still a mystery element to it, where it still feels like no matter how much you research it, like you're always going to have a partial picture. And even down to, I've been replaying Dark Souls 3 recently, and I discovered an entire secret level I had never even heard of before. Like this, place you get transported that's like some kind of dragon shrine with like a huge boss battle and stuff. I was so amazed. But I think that's why it's... and to connect this back actually to what you were saying with the lore, when you have Dark Souls as a series now, the things which are missing or the things which you don't know about become just as important as the things you do, because even elements of the world becoming obscured or fading into the past or becoming mystery, like that has a meaning to it in the story Dark Souls is trying to depict, of like this extreme hubris by these people who in their time believe that they're invincible. And then not only do they either become like corrupt or just die, but over the years, over hundreds of years, eventually all their accomplishments just disappear and nobody cares anymore. And what's left is this like hollowed out, terrifying world that they've left behind.
This goes like sort of beyond lore, but I think the thing that really hooked me with the Souls game specifically, like I love Sekiro. Sekiro's unusual for these games because it really does tell you the story through cutscenes and straightforward things, even though you can go out of your way to get more stuff. And I love the story there. The story is unusual for video games. That story is literally like death is a part of life. Like you cannot cheat death. You cannot cheat the inevitability. It's coming, and there's nothing you can do about it except live the best life possible. Like I thought that Divine Severance ending was beautiful. I mean, I don't want to spoil it for people, but what a certain character says at the end of his road. But the Souls games, the thing that really hooked me was this idea that I've been chewing on for a while, because this sort of goes outside of games, but something that has really annoyed me in the past like 6 years or so are people who live in places like New York, or like let's say Michigan, places that are not going to see like mass flooding, huge climate death events. They're not going to see millions of people die right where they live, but they're always talking about the end of the world. The end of the world is coming for them in 10 years. And I always hated that, because it's a way to you're saying that you want that to happen so you don't have to live with the reality of seeing your nation's border guards shoot climate refugees, deflate their boats, all for your standard of living. You want to be exterminated in some holy blaze of righteousness or some biblical flood so you do not have to live with it. But no, you do have to live with it. Most of us do have to live with it and decide what that means to live to be a person then. Dark Souls are games entirely about how the world can end, the world, so to speak, can end, but really life does go on. People are still vain and fucking greedy and courageous. People love one another even when they're like barely holding on to what's left of their humanity. And I thought that was amazing because there are so many post-apocalyptic games, but the point of them is like, no, life doesn't go on. You know, we're either like automatons who are only focused on survival, or we just immediately go feral. And I just don't. The known world has ended a lot of times in the history of human civilization. You know what happened? Life went on.
It was fucked up. It was fucked up and scary, but like life continued beyond that point, and people just kind of puttered around finding notes and stuff like that.
especially people who were at the imperial core that collapsed. People who lived in Rome, they still had to. Okay, well, we're not fucking Rome anymore, but my life goes, like, what does this mean for me as a person, for me in relation to the people in my life?
Yeah.
And it's the only game I have ever played that confronts those questions.
I love that. And, you know, I also love, I feel like in these games, you know, it feels like a world. And this is what I like so much better about it, you know, than, you know, some of the sort of movie-ish games, is it feels like a world that could only exist in games and that like only could really function in a way where you're sort of discovering it on your own. You know what I mean? I feel like, you know, this sort of way to explore a world, you know, sort of by physically doing it yourself, you really couldn't do that in like a novel or any sort of like more, you know, linear entertainment, you know, and so, yeah, I think it really works and makes it a lot richer and sort of, you know, involves you in a way that a lot of, you know, more linear narratives aren't able to do and should be, you know, maybe like, you know, what games sort of strive to do with their narratives as opposed to just like doing a 3-act movie story.
What games has everybody played?
Sekiro and Demon Souls, and I'm like working. I want to play them all is what I'm doing. So, you know, I'm like, I've gone back. I have played Dark Souls 1 and 3. I'm looking on my Steam right now, and I'm like, I do have like 10 hours in both of those games.
Okay.
But if you had asked me before this, I'd be like, I probably stopped at the tutorial. But I'm like, oh, I have like 10 hours in each. It just felt like I didn't get past the tutorial.
I've done Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne, and Sekiro, but I have not beaten it yet. I have to admit that. I find Sekiro a lot harder than Dark Souls, personally.
Well, see, that was my experience too. I think people who play a lot of Dark Souls find Sekiro, especially early on, really challenging. It's so much faster and so different.
Yeah, it's super good. But definitely very, very tricky. I had not owned a console in years, and I picked up a PS4 on sale a year or two ago, specifically so I could play Bloodborne. I was so excited for Bloodborne.
I all of them. Yeah, I started with Sekiro, then Bloodborne. I went backwards through all of them, but yeah, no, I beat Demon Souls a few months ago. I had to take a break from replaying them because I was like, oh no, what if I burn myself out before Elden Ring? So I'm on a hiatus from new games now. But no, yeah, I had a lot of free time last year.
Hell yeah.
This was like after the end of the Burnitor, and you know, I was just like, you know, it was a very depressing time for everyone, and you know, I was recording more stuff, but it was like, well, I can only play so much Counter-Strike before I go insane. And I was like, Sekiro looks cool. And then I thought it was harder than I was like, well, I like loved Ninja Gaiden when I was 14. How hard could this be? And it's like, it's so hard that I like I had to stop playing it on a TV. I actually noticed the input lag affecting me.
Wow.
And I like went over to monitor, but then I eventually was like, okay, I get it. It's a rhythm game.
Yeah.
I think if I had played Souls first, I would have it would have been way harder to get. I feel like going in clean helped me.
With Dark Souls 1, then I actually started replaying it just now. In fact, 'cause, like I was playing it on Switch, and I got stuck on the fucking Four Kings, which is, if you don't know, is one of the most annoying fucking boss fights. It takes place in a fucking empty void, and there's like 5 enemies, and they're very far away, and you gotta run and manage your endurance. It's easier if you have magic, but if you don't have fucking magic and you just have to fucking swing a sword, they can fucking whop your ass very easily. But I'm pushing through it. Dark Souls 1, it's not my favorite of the series. I know it's most people's favorite, but it's not mine. I really like it. I really dig it. It's what got me into it, but it's never been my favorite. But there's some beautiful moments in it. I love the Zweihander. I think playing with the Zweihander in that game is probably maybe my favorite weapon in all the series. I love the final boss. I love Gwen and the music so much. I think that's one of the most beautiful moments in games I've ever had. And I'm very fortunate because I actually beat him the first time. Most people like get his ass because I don't know why, but I was lucky I beat him one time, and it was just like a really beautiful moment. I felt like I really got the fact that, oh, the final boss in the game is actually like a weakling and not really that strong, and like you're just putting him down before you become him or not.
Yeah, this was the guy, and as long as you're good with your L2 timings, you're just gonna rip him apart. Yeah. I played the stream I did, the Palestinian charity stream. That was my first time playing through that part of Dark Souls 1, and it was a weird stream because I was recovering from my second Moderna shot. And it was like very, how that feels. And like for the first 15 minutes, like of course it's like one of our streams, we were figuring out audio for the first like 15 minutes. I was doing that, and I lost to Gwendolyn probably 5 times, which is like like Gwendolyn's like one of the easiest bosses in the series, and I was like, killed by him 5 times. I somehow first tried the Four Kings, and I think I just like I got a lucky roll of the dice with the AI. But I just sort of stayed. I used the Black Knight, like not the ultra great sword, but the great sword, and that always just like paid dividends for me.
See, for some reason I did want to talk about like builds. Like for some reason, it's just impossible for me not to get the biggest sword ever. I've tried the smaller swords, but I always have to do an ultra great sword, Zweihander, the fucking gut sword, and 2. I always start off with knight. I don't know why. I've done like half a magic run one time, but I always have to go knight.
I've started in Demon Souls. I started, using one of the royals because it was like recommended as a slightly easier class to be able to, target guys.
Yeah, I think magic is for cowards, Jim.
I think. Well, I actually find I'm like getting into the second level. I'm like, I think it's another way for them to fuck you over because it was easier in the first level, but it's not helpful for the second boss. And then you're just like, you're not good with the sword, and it's impossible to beat the second fucking boss. Like, I feel like I want to like start over again now. It's like they like really. It's the worst trick ever because they let you get through the first boss, and you're like, I'm doing like pretty good, and then you're just fucked.
That's why oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say that Dark Souls 1 is definitely my favorite, but I've come to really appreciate the sequels, and I think they all complement each other. Like I think the sequels add something to the original Dark Souls by expanding on a lot of the ideas and making you kind of appreciate that that part of the charm of Dark Souls 1 is that it isn't totally smoothed out. Like there are edges to its production. It is like it can be a bit of a mixed bag,
fucking
but that almost makes it more exciting.
Rolling. Fucking sucks.
I like that's what's so funny about 2, because in 2 they just like vomit souls at you. And 2 was my first hex build. I did a hex build. It was, a lot goes into that. And I was like, oh no, am I going to have like enough points for blah, blah, blah. And then by the end of the playthrough, like I played the DLC too. It was like, Oh, I'm a hex build who's also can like one hand the fume alter grades with the
Yes.
gut sword. Like, it's just like, okay, well, what's the point of like a build in this game? You could just like by the end of your first playthrough, you could be like 40 everything. Like it's just stupid. But I mean, in 3, I same as you. Like I was all alter grade swords. I did a quality build, but then you get the katana from Midir. Dark Eater Midir, and it's like, fuck, like, I want to go 60 decks because this is so fucking
I'm always
cool.
tempted by katanas. I've tried them once or twice. They look so fucking cool, but there's a lot of fucking work. And I hate where shit breaks. And I think that's more of a problem in, I think, 2, especially. Because
They have a weird durability
yeah, you have to
system.
have like 2. So let's talk about 2, because actually 2 is my favorite one, and it's most people's least favorite, but it's the one when I played the most. I think I've beaten it maybe 10 times. I beat it
Oh my gosh.
PS3, PS4, PC solo because I had to fucking pirate it. Because I sold my PS3, I sold my PS4, I still needed Souls games, so I had to fucking pirate it, and you can't summon any like fucking help during some of the more bullshit areas in that game. I actually soloed most of 1 because I didn't know about humanity, because they don't really tell you like about humanity and summoning, so I like soloed most of that as well.
Wish your team could find some next level talent? When your business needs someone with the right skills fast, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. One of the things I love about Indeed is it makes hiring easy, all in one place. For example, the assessments. Indeed helps star applicants to shine with over 135 assessment tests, from cooking all the way to coding. Start hiring now with the $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
But 2 is just, I know it doesn't make as much sense as Dark Souls 1. The world isn't as cohesive, but there's just something, like you were saying, Felix, about the characters that I really like. I think this is the one that had the most characters that seemed like real people, and they got fucked up over time. And you got like, you can't really get close to a character in a Souls game, but something like Maulin the Armorer, who he kind of feels like a friend by the end, but then he's sadly a small business tyrant, becomes an asshole by the end if you help him out. But what I always like about Dark Souls 2, I'm realizing, is the characters, and I like the NPCs a lot more. They just seem to have a little bit more life. The graphical style is a little bit more colorful, a little bit more fun, and it does feel a little bit more like a smoother game. That's what I noticed when I first played it on day 1. It's like, oh, now they've made it like as smooth as like a AAA game, as opposed to just being, this secondary Japanese company doing good. They've actually smoothed out a lot of the edges. Now, I know a lot of people don't like that, but I've always appreciated it, and I've always felt that the PvP in Dark Souls 2 is objectively the best. And even though it's hard to get to work, but it's the most fun.
Which version do you prefer? Of Scholar of the Verse Sin versus like original?
Well, the thing is, I just really love that it exists. That I could the 8th and 9th time I get to play a completely different version of the game with different enemy placements, and it's shocking. Like, there's so many holy shit moments, because there'll be this part that you're used to playing and it's very easy, and you run through, and then the next time it's like 2 fucking dragons, and like there's no way to get past them other than just being extremely fucking good. So I like both versions of them. I think maybe I prefer Scholar of the First Sin because it has the extra, storyline and character and stuff, which is, strange for a Souls game to have such an important character be like expansion pack only. But I feel the DLC into is pretty good as well, and maybe some of my favorite DLC.
The DLC changed my opinion on that game. Like when I played that game, I was like, this is still a great, like the original, when I was going through the original, it's like, this is still a great game, but like it doesn't have the flowing level design in the same way. Like there are great, amazing characters like Lucatiel, but like, I was like, it's like, it doesn't have as much as the Miyazaki touch. But the way that they go, like, I thought, Vendrick he's like maybe the best character of his type in the entire, like in anything that FromSoft has ever made. He's like, when you go back and do his memories, and he's just like he's the only character of his type who's like, yeah, I tried. I tried. Like, I'm sorry. I fucking suck as much as any of these guys. And when you see him, like, that Velstadt fight is so fucking crazy and has such an amazing, like, sad feeling to it that this is like the last guy with all his wits in this entire kingdom, and he's just like, yeah, I know I'm defending like the husk of a man, but just like, I have to do it. And then you get to him and he's literally just like walking around an empty room in like basketball shorts.
It's what
a fucking amazing character.
It's such a great reveal. Oh my god, it's such a great reveal because you're just that level is fucking hard. You have to go into that tomb. I mean, it took me forever to get through it. I should mention one of the innovations in Dark Souls 2 is that if you kill the enemy enough times, they disappear. I think it's like 13 times. So if you're ever stuck in a certain, like, you don't stay stuck for long in a certain level, because once you pass like a dozen times, the enemies just disappear and you can kind of just run through the boss. And sometimes it's a good strategy to just do it on purpose, just to get the souls. But yeah, that reveal of Vendrick and that boss fight, I think that I asked people what their favorite boss fight was, and I gotta say, actually, even though it kind of sucks technically, Vendrick was the one that felt the most emotional. It was very hard for me early on because, again, with the big sword, you kind of get slow. But once you figure out his trick, it's very easy and he's simple, but it's just like you're just chopping down this great king who's a zombie, and you've already been told that if you defeat him, this will be your destiny too. One day you will wander these lands without knowing why. And you get, and as you said, Felix, you get a lot more of his backstory, especially with the war with the giants. Like, you get, like, that's just such a great storytelling. I think maybe that's some of the best storytelling in any of the Souls games. It's more explicit than you're used to, but it's still like mysterious in a very interesting way.
I want to ask, and this is for my own edification, and also from maybe anyone who's out there listening who hasn't taken on these games. What would you all recommend as like the best order to play these in?
I would probably say DS1, DS2, 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and then Demon Souls.
Wow, Demon Souls last. Okay, wow.
Because I think like Demon Souls is weird because it's in some ways easier, but in some ways, like, the stuff with world tendency is very unintuitive, and it also has the least like quality. Even the PS5 remake, you're sort of shocked at how few quality of life things there are, and there's like the combat is like, I remember, like, you don't even, several things you just take for granted playing all the Souls games, you just don't have them in combat.
Yeah.
And there aren't too many enemies that are like crazy, but it feels very different, and I feel like you need the experience of having played through 2 especially to get through it.
I think that's a good recommendation. I actually think that's a good recommendation. I usually tell people just go in order, start with your Demon Souls. But but with the remake, and I mean, you can't even get a fucking PS5 now, so what difference does it make? So yeah, start with your Dark Souls remastered, then do 2, and then do 3, which we haven't talked about yet. Probably the most divisive of the Souls games, I think. I'm very divided on it too, because it has some of my favorite things in Souls games, and also it's probably my least favorite Souls game. I love the bosses. I love the character designs. I love the more dark fantasy turns. I even love the fact that most of the dudes that you fight are just like dudes in armor. I even kind of like that aspect of it, which a lot of people complain about, not having as many, fantasy bosses. But I did like that. I like the weapons. I like everything. But man, the mobs in that game are just such a slog. I logged in today and I ended up in the fucking DLC, the Painted World. I hadn't played this character for like 2 years. I'm jumping in and I'm like getting ripped apart by 13 fucking wolves. 30 steps from the bonfire. What am I supposed to do there? And it's just like some of that is just so annoying in a way. But once you get past that stuff, you see really beautiful boss fights, really beautiful character designs, and really fun weapons and ways to use the weapons. I love it, but there's also part of it that man, I might not ever play through that whole one again.
I'm actually playing the DLC right now. I somehow got it for free from PlayStation. I have no idea how. It just showed up one day. But I unfortunately have to play my magic character because I had started New Game Plus with my main melee dude, and I did not want to go all the way, leveling up all the way through New Game Plus to get to the DLC. So I was like, okay, I'll just do magic, which I don't like quite as much. But man, the Ashes of Ariandel DLC is one of the best examples of the highs and lows of From Software design, because the sister Ariandel or father Ariandel, the twin combo final boss battle of that DLC is incredible. One of the best boss battles I've ever seen. It's huge, it's cinematic, it goes through 3 crazy phases, and then at the same time that you can fight that, you can also do the optional boss of that world, which is one of the worst bosses in the series. The Champion Gravelord, who just has
didn't even try on that.
It was literally they just took a bunch of wolves that you saw earlier, scattered them around, made a really big wolf. It looked like they gave him the exact same move set as Sif. Or the Great Rat from Dark Souls 2. Just awful, but also very difficult. I would put it on par with the rat, yeah.
It's an NPC invader fight plus Royal Rat Authority, kind of.
Yeah.
And it's it's such a weird choice, but even with that, Ashes of Ariandel is, the story with it feels very too, actually. I loved Ring City. I love how Ring City looks. I love how it feels. But Ashes of Air, I find myself thinking about it more because I the character of Frida and Wilhelm are so fucking good, because I think that's an easy thing to hook me on with single player games, when someone is talking to you, the player character, but really you, the player, and going why are you here? What do you what do you think you're doing? Do you know why you're doing this? Do you know what do you think you can get out of this? This isn't your fucking business. But it's not fully in the way that Liquid Snake is you're insane, you're as much of a fucking psychopath as me. You also have the other side of it where it's well, she is Sister Frida is condemning these people to just rot, and you have to let things die. But at the same time, what am I doing? What right do I have?
My opinion on Dark Souls 3 is I've kind of grown to love it, but it is just like 2. I think it's its own thing. And I think that's why I like the sequels now, is realizing that they're all kind of going after different variations on what Dark Souls can be. And for 3, it really is this is the AAA version of Dark Souls. This is the big budget one, big world. The DLCs themselves are massive, and all the system, all the little quality of life improvements have been implemented to make it so that the whole experience is just a lot more forgiving and a lot smoother for players. But that's also why I can't love it quite as much as Dark Souls 1.
So let's talk Bloodborne. I think Bloodborne, of all these games, I've been playing it, replaying it recently, I think it's the best one. I think it's the best one.
Yeah.
The
Probably,
design,
I would
probably I'd
agree.
have to say.
yeah, the gameplay, the story, like everything just comes together. And I realized also that like they take so much of the design from Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is an absolutely beautiful movie, and I'm glad they stole so much from it because it absolutely creates this bizarre gothic Victorian vampire Lovecraftian mashup that just feels so like fresh and fun, and it's just one of the greatest games like ever. Absolutely.
Yeah, it is like very straightforward in its storytelling, but there's still tons of like, if you just go from cutscenes and just like the mandatory NPC conversations, you'll get a fair bit more than you usually get in Souls games. But you have an option to go so much deeper, and there are so many good like character moments in it, like you don't usually get in these games. I think everyone, the first time you see "Tonight Gehrman joins the hunt," that's like, it's like, that is like a very unusual character scene where a boss is actually saying something for these games. But like, yeah, it's, the level design is perfect. Everything flows together despite being sort of fast travel from the jump. You would, if you describe the hub world like on paper, you'd be like, oh, that sounds like a pain in the ass, but it somehow isn't. Like, it's just such a good hub world, you don't really care. Even though it is, you know, in that DS2 design or DS3 design, it still feels like a totally cohesive world, even though it's not connected together in the way that Lordran is. And the combat is like, it's incredible.
Yes.
I mean, people simplify it as like, this is just DS1 but sped up, but it's so much more than that. And I wonder how they got to a lot of the ideas that they got. Like, the use of the pistol is amazing. I don't even know what the development process for the type of things that they did with the combat. I have no idea how they would have even got to these things.
And that's funny you say the use of the pistol is amazing. You can play Bloodborne all your life and never use the pistol because like there's so many great weapons and all of them are fucking good. Even like the two-handed, like the first time I played, I like, even Miyazaki has said this, the thing he likes about his games is that you can keep the same weapon from beginning to end, and as the game's gone on, he's decided what they try to do is add more skills and more unique moves to make it so that the role playing of this character, of this weapon, feels more real. It's like, okay, I'm an expert with the straight sword, I don't need to just upgrade to silver great sword, this long sword, that long sword. You can stick with that first one and get good at it. And Bloodborne, all the weapons so different, so fun. My favorite is the DLC one with the spinning saw wheel that you just grind into the enemies. Oh, it's so satisfying, and I love the blood, and that the blood gets on you. And if you do this, you can wipe it off on the fucking pavement and stuff if you do the right move. Yeah, it's such a great game.
Yeah, I would say with the mechanics of Bloodborne, they are just so satisfying in a way that almost no other game is. And
The
if there is
aggression,
like,
the encouragement, aggression with the health, getting your health back when you get hit, and you get your health back. Oh, that's so much more satisfying than healing.
yeah,
Yes.
what I see in it is, if there's a design philosophy like from Dark Souls that I think Bloodborne is expanding on, it's the idea of like risk taking and like how much do you want to gamble on certain actions. Because it reminds me of how, in Dark Souls, of course, you die, you lose your souls, but if you get back to that point, you can get your souls back. And fights in Bloodborne feel like they're making you do that kind of an act like within a few seconds at a time, because you lose your health and you have to decide in a split second, like, am I going to go for it and try and get it back? Like, is it worth that risk? And if you do get it back, it's so satisfying. And if you die, it's like, well, I took a gamble and it didn't pay off. But like, that's just how it is.
Something I'm very curious about Bloodborne, like the other thing that I'm curious about, like beyond just the gameplay improvements, because there's a lot of the original stuff they were doing and a lot of the original world design philosophy, but the conscious choice they made where boss fights are more explicitly cinematic, especially in Old Hunters,
Oh, yeah.
where there is sort of like a verbal, not interplay because you're not really talking to them, but a verbal relationship with the
Yeah,
bosses.
the
like
Maria fight.
Ludwig, Maria,
Yeah.
big God, like it's. I feel bad for the people that made the Maria fight because it is a shame it's in the same DLC as maybe the best boss fight they ever did, Orphan Cuss.
Oh yes, yes.
Like
I can't.
I feel like
I can't do it.
I had the advantage of playing that game right after Sekiro, and Orphan Cuss is so similar to Ishin Ashina, the Sword Saint version, the 3-phase version,
yeah.
that I didn't. People will think I'm lying. It took me 2 tries, but that was literally just from playing it like 8 hours at a time, and like playing Sekiro all those times. But
I think by that time I just had such high damage that I was able to beat them maybe on the second try. I've always been surprised by the bosses that people find hard. Like I did Arnston Small first time solo.
Really?
I don't know how. I was surprised when people said it was hard, but then there's some bosses that just kick my ass every single goddamn time. Like all the bosses, any demon boss, any fucking demon, any variation of demon, it takes me forever. I'm right now in Dark Souls. I'm stuck on the second strayed demon because he has that fucking area of attack if you get close, but then if you move away he can hit you from any fucking demon I can't deal with. But who is your least favorite boss in all this?
Least.
I think like, man, that's tough. Because there are bosses that are like bad on purpose. Like the final boss of Demon Souls is like that. The point of that is like decay, as always with these games. But I feel like the worst boss, just as far as like man, what the fuck were you doing? I almost can't fully count this one because it's totally optional. But the Grave Robbers in 2 is just like, this is one of the most annoying things you guys have ever done. But like, as far as mandatory, probably Skeleton Lords also in 2.
See,
For me, it's right now the Tower Knight, who I can't pass in
Tower
Demon
Knight
Souls,
is hard.
literally
Tower
the
Knight
second
is
boss.
actually hard. Tower Knight's not bullshit.
Yeah, well, Tower Knight is just I have to restart with the sword. I think I need to fuck up his hamstrings, and it's just the magic is not doing it for me.
Are you killing the archers?
I am. Yeah, I run around and kill the archers, but I don't have a good enough sword set up to get his ankles.
I can see that being really tough with like not a melee
It's because it takes a little the magic like takes a little while to round up, and he like basically just like will fucking sweep you every single time you try to lock on and do magic. So I think I've got to start over again.
One thing I do like about Demon Souls is it's more like it's a long-term project for anybody who's playing it. Like I can ask you week to week and you'll just tell me like, oh, I made it to this next screen. And then
I should say, by the way, that I actually don't even like feel that frustrated here. I'm very happy to have Demon Souls on the PlayStation as a game. Like, I'm proud that I can get to the Tower Knight so easily at this point. I can get to the Tower Knight no problem. I can't defeat him, but yeah, it's like a great... I'm not like banging my head against the wall. I'll play it for an hour and a half here or there, and then, come back and give it another shot another time,
Yeah, if you're including all the bosses, just playing them, I really did hate fighting the Champion, Great Lord, Great Wolf combo. But for mandatory bosses, it's probably that one that comes when you first enter like the Hell Layer past Quelaag. Probably my least favorite section of the game.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't remember what's the
It's
boss
not
that you fight that he just does like massive swinging arm attacks.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I just beat him.
Oh, he has a gross. Oh, the discharge.
Yeah, ceaseless discharge.
Yeah.
Ceaseless discharge. He has a really purposely gross name, I feel like.
There's a way to get him to just fall off of the side of the waterfall or whatever he's on, the lava fall he's on, that can like end the fight pretty quickly. But even getting that done is like, it's just like glitchy and weird, and the hitboxes for that boss are just all over the place. So yeah, never enjoy that section.
I didn't mind that set. Like just as far as like least favorite sections, I didn't mind that section that much because I was with the Black Knight swords. You have like something crazy like 20% extra damage on demons, on chaos enemies, and so I was just like tearing through things. But and I'd already gotten like 40/40 on my quality build, which I know is the coward's build, but it was my first time playing it, and I was playing it on stream. But I think like more than any boss, the thing I hate in these games the most, like more than anything, is the Tomb of the Giants.
Oh, really?
That is like, and that's not even like rushed. They didn't even.
Yeah.
It's not with Bed of Chaos and all that shit. It's like, okay, I get it. You were rushed. Like you were out of budget basically, and it's just you have to do it a bunch of times. It's frustrating, but whatever. But with fucking the Two of the Giants, it's like that was not something that was rushed. That is just them purposely being like, "Fuck you." Like, I hated that.
Light Town, probably my least favorite. Still my least favorite, and it runs like shit on every single version. What awful! I hate all the swap. There's a bad one in Demon Souls as well. My least favorite boss, probably Fume Knight in the DLC for 2. This took me weeks.
Fume Knight, yeah.
Because he's just so fast, so strong, that you basically have to rethink how you play the game if you have certain builds. Even if you've been smashing everything, which you have been if you've been playing Dark Souls 2 right. But man, he's just like left hand, right hand, Robert fucking Ori. He is on your ass nonstop. It's fucking sick.
Fume Knight, I usually have an easier time with like humanoid enemies, but that he was really fucking tough. He was really, really fucking tough. But I actually love that. I mean, I love like a very difficult like knight in armor fight, even if you can't parry him. I mean, I had the benefit of like, you know, just like I could do anything at that point. I was like 40 strength and like 40 faith and like 35 int. I mean, you can't like the magic isn't really the best thing against him, but I was just like, I still though like I do get it. I do get it because it is probably the hardest like knight enemy in the entire Dark Souls series.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, I think fairly easily. Yeah. So,
what did you think of? What did you think of? I was another DLC that we didn't really touch on. I forget what the Ice Kingdom where you have to break these knights out of like mausoleums to like fight the knights who are basically trapped in hell.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's so fucking cool. And it's very video.
I love that.
It's so fucking cool. And it's a very video gamey thing that you don't expect in the Dark Souls games. Like, oh, collect, 12 gooseberries to start the boss fight. That was actually kind of, I mean, there is stuff like that in the games, but it's normally obscure. But that was the fucking Crown of the Ivory King. That's a really, really good DLC. But it has some of the that Dark Souls 2 DLC, like it has some of the most bullshit fights, but it actually is the DLC that's most cohesively tied into the story, which may be a knock against the game, frankly, that you have to play the expanded version to really get the whole story. But man, I really dig it. Favorite bosses?
This is a cliche, but I would say, like, in all of gaming, I don't think that there is a boss that compares to Ornstein and Smaug for me. And it's, like, not even just because of the fight. It's, like, everything leading up to it as well. When I played Dark Souls, like, the first time I failed because I went down the path of the skeletons down to Tomb of the Giants first. I thought that's where we were supposed to go, and I was like, "This game's bullshit. I can't even kill any of these things." And then I came back later, figure out I went down the wrong path, and after that, like getting back into this game, like conquering it, getting through the tower with all the obstacles and traps and stuff, and getting transported to the Anor Londo with like the giant kingdom, these huge ornate castles, and you just feel this like intense buildup. And the boss battle took me like days to beat, and when I did, like, I've never had a feeling in a video game like like beating them and then going up and getting the blessing, and then after that you can map warp, which is like, I wasn't expecting that to happen. So it was that's the climax of the game for me. I love that.
Very tough answer. I'd have to, like, I guess it would be between like Artorias, Orphan Cause, just atmospherically. I mean, not like a super difficult boss, but like just atmospherically, it's so up there for me. The Abyss Watchers are like, I think that's like one of the best ways they've told a story through a boss fight and like giving you characterization without any verbalization. Gehrman or Ishin, the three form Sword Saint Ishinashina. Ishinashina is like, that's one of the best bosses I've ever, like, goddamn, that shit's so good. I don't know how I would feel about it if I like played all the Souls and then that, but it's like, that is such a fucking cool boss.
Oh, and so hard. It took me fucking forever. I actually had to stop the game for a couple of months before I could come back to it. The Sekiro game has some really great falls. So I think my favorite on the whole, probably Lady Maria of the Astral Clock Tower. Because like you said, you get that sense of who she is as a person. She's a person, actually. She's not a monster.
Yeah.
She's talking. You get a sense of what she's gone through. And it's a hard fight, but not an impossible fight. It's one that it feels like more old school video gaming where you have to go back until you learn her moves, and then you can probably take her on. But going in, like, this is about pattern recognition. This is about, you can't just go in and smash her. You have to take your time, and it feels like hard but fair. And every time I lost, and it really took me a while to be there, probably longer than most people, but I never got frustrated because it just felt so fair. It's like I had to earn it, and she felt like you said, Jack, like playing like an online multiplayer person. Like, I shouldn't be able to cheese this person. I should have to get good until I beat them.
Yeah, Lady Maria, like that one's up there for me too. And like, what I love about Lady Maria just as a character too is that you can like go deeper and find the relationship between her and Gehrman. And there is, like, in classic FromSoft fashion, they don't really tell you what is the name. Was this a romantic relationship? Was this like just a like mentor-mentee relationship? Was this a platonic friendship? You don't really know, and you're not really supposed to know, but you do know there is this genuine sense of like love and loss. And that both they're both suffering the exact same fate, being trapped. They have to be trapped and think about their entire lives leading up to this point until you free them. It's one of the only times where you, the player character, you're unambiguously doing something good by like freeing somebody.
My favorite boss is the other boss I've beaten is Phalanx. So
Phalanx.
There's two the two I've encountered so far. Phalanx I was able to beat with my magic, and also just is a big gross Jabba the Hutt bunch of swords and stuff. Phalanx I was able to beat with my magic, and so that's my favorite boss of the series.
Well, Jack, we could probably look up trophy hunting. I would bet that the fact that you beat Felix probably puts you at least 78th percentile of Demon Souls players.
First time I got it on my first time. I was on stream and I was able to get it first time.
Oh, it took me a while. Hey, Jack. See, maybe you just need to start from the beginning. Maybe
that's what I really do, and I swear the magic is a fool's game though. I swear they make Phalanx easy and then make the second one like impossible to beat with magic. It seems like it fits their MO over there at From.
All right.
I feel like magic is easy. Like 1 and 2, magic is pretty easy. Demon Souls, I don't know. Like it seems like you have to like do a lot to get like cool spells.
It's very slow too.
Souls.
The first one you get is really like a slow, like a lot of frames have to go to get that thing off, and there's a lot going on during those frames. I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it feels like we've only scratched the surface, but I don't want to keep y'all long. But thank y'all so much for joining us. We'll have to do. We have to talk some more again. Rose, where
I'm gonna
can
keep
people
trying to
find
get
you?
through these. I might switch to the order that was suggested here and come back to Demon Souls. So it'll be nice to kind of check in as I'm trying to get through these too.
Yeah, you beat a couple. We'll come
No,
back.
I would love to.
Oh yeah.
So, Rose, where can people find you?
You can find me at my current, and I'm going to say only Twitter account I've ever had, in case any Twitter support people are listening, at RIP_cinema. You can check out my YouTube show, RIP Cinema. I just released a new episode about the movie Malignant, where I give some recommendations for a few Giallo films.
Oh, cool. And Felix, where can people find you?
You can find me at Twitter and Instagram by your logic, one word. And Chapo Travos, everywhere where podcasts are found, and Patreon. We've returned to D&D.
Oh, cool.
We just completed a new D&D campaign with patches for podcasts about list fans. They will recognize patches, one of the finest DMs in the game. Very excited for people to hear this. I think it will probably come out sometime around late winter of this year and next year.
All right, sweet.
Very cool.
Folks, that was Dark Souls. Thank you so much for listening. Have a good one.